I know we don't need more negativity going on with all the craziness in the world today, but we have some sad news to report, specifically in the voice acting world, and that of the voice acting world on the other side of the globe in Japan. Predominant voice actor Keiji Fujiwara passed away at 55 due to cancer, April 12th, 2020. Luckily, he's one of the few people that have not passed away recently due to other reasons. Kenji was best known within our Transformer community as a lot of stuff from dub nature that maybe people would not be too familiar with, because especially even someone like me who prefers to watch stuff in its original creation. So Kenji's first role in the Transformer world was he was Beast Wars Dinobot and later, clone Dinobot, if you will. And then, of course, in Beast Wars Metals, he would be Beast Wars Dinobot 2. The Transmetal 2. And then, I'll skip over the one that I most associate with him with. But then, of course, in Transformers Animated, he was Grimlock, so he kept to the dinosaur thing. In Transformers Prime, he was Megatron's dub voice for Japan, and he was the voice of Vector Sigma for the Cybertron Satellite Transformers division. That was people remember Transformers Prime when it aired in Japan, they had this separate segment in before and after the show, which starred the Tokyo Girls Style, which was an idol group. And he was the voice of Vector Sigma, who would educate them on the history of Transformers and stuff. It was a weird segment. You could find those on YouTube, actually, if you Google those. And he was also at the Micron Theater, which was also part of those extra segments. He was Hades and Gora, two of the little Micron mini-cons in the little comedy segments. And his final Transformer role was that of the Q Transformers miniseries, which was the Q Transformers Mystery of Convoy Returns miniseries, and he was Generation 1 Megatron in that. Those little SD flash animations. The role that in the Transformer world that most people would probably associate with him, and is probably the most predominant, is that of the role of Devastor from Micron Legend, also known as Armada. And it's probably my favorite role of all the stuff that he's done here that I could associate with. I mean, Scott McNeil will always be my Dinobot, but I loved Devastor, a.k.a. Scavenger, as he was known in Armada, in Micron Legend. He was one of my favorite characters of that series. It's such a shame that his toy was so limited by what it could do in terms of posability and stuff. And that's, by the way, to go on a tangent, that's a toy I'd love to see revisited in a Generations kind of thing, but I digress. So that was probably his most famous role that I know personally that I associate with the Transformer world. But with Kenji, especially for me personally, it's even bigger when you go outside of the Transformer realm. And I'm just going to list some that are personally important to me and one that's really important to me. From the mecha kind of genre stuff that I really enjoy, he was Irvine and Zoids, specifically the Chaos Century era. I love Zoids, really good series. If you like robots and stuff like that, specifically stuff that's owned by Takara and Hasbro, check out Zoids, really good series. And he was Irvine, one of the main characters. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he was AC/DC, one of the main villains in the Part 2 segment of the series, Battle Tendency. In Attack on Titan, again, very famous anime and manga, he was Hannes, or Haynes, depending how you want to pronounce it, Japanese pronunciation or American pronunciation. He was Eren Yeager's, I guess you could call it, adopted parent, caregiver after he lost his parents early on, spoiler. In the video game world, he was Axel in Kingdom Hearts, which is, anyone who's a big fan of Kingdom Hearts knows how much of a big deal that is. For me, the two top ones with me is he was in the Mega Man EXE series, the manga series, and the anime series that ran for, oh my god, feels like almost 10 years. He was Mr. Famous, better known as Edgy Meijin, or Meijin Sensei, the cocky, egotistical, I guess we'll call it owner of the store and everything then some of the EXE series. I loved his character in that, kind of based on a real life character too in the Capcom world. And his best known role for me, and probably the one that I will put above everything else we've just discussed, is everyone who knows me very well and my past would motorsports and cars and everything like that. I am a huge fan of Initial D. Huge fan. It's like religion to me, Initial D. And he was the voice of Shingo Soji, who was the EG6 driver, aka the red Honda Civic. I believe it was a 91 EG6 sleeper turbo with the gum tape deathmatch, episode 15 and 16. I love Initial D, and Shingo I'll always hear that voice when I see Shingo, and that was one of my favorite characters from that series, just because he was so deranged. If there ever was a villain in that series, and there really isn't a villain in Initial D, it's it's a sports anime, you have rivals and stuff, but the closest thing that came to a bad guy or a villain, it was probably Shingo, and Kenji just did an incredible role with him, and so it sucks. It really sucks. He would, there's tons of other stuff that I'm, overlooking. He did a lot of the dub voices for stuff, whether it be Joker for the Dark Knight movie, or in Bionicles, the Japanese dub, which I've never seen, but I'd love to one day. He was Pohatu, one of the original Toa. And he would go on to be like, even Iron Man's dub voice and Tony Stark's dub voice for the cinematic universe of Avengers movies, and of course, anything that's Iron Man in anime. Dude was very prolific, and I am totally glazing over everything else. He was Mewtwo, he was so much stuff, but I just kind of wanted to touch on the stuff that I really liked that he did, that I could associate with, and the Transformer world. So losing the voice of Shingo is a big deal, because I always feel like the door on Initial D is never truly closed, and it'll be a shame now because we won't have that voice ever again. So it really sucks, but that's kind of the way the world is right now, and it's just some bad news after another, and 2020 has just not been a good year. But I figured we might as well just discuss him, talk about him, and celebrate him, and for all his hard work, despite the fact that he left the world way too early. And all I could pretty much end it with is Rage Your Dream.